All right, at 6:05 p.m., we will call this meeting of the Mountain View Wisman School Board to order. We will start with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now take a roll call of trustees.
Ellen Wheeler.
Chris Jane.
Laura Blakely.
Laura Berman.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that all trustees are present, all 5 trustees. And now I'd like to move on to our agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. On a motion made by Trustee Wheeler and seconded by Trustee Blakely, we will now vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, let the record reflect that on that motion moved by Trustee Wheeler and seconded by Trustee Blakely, the trustees voted unanimously to approve the agenda. We're moving on to item 2 now. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board concerning items on the closed session agenda. There was a little confusion about this at our last meeting, so I wanted to clarify. The closed session agenda tonight includes 1 item. It is a conference with real property negotiators regarding 325 Gladys Avenue. If you would like to address the board about this matter at this time, you can raise your hand on Zoom, or you can press *9 on your phone. To raise your hand, you click on Participants at the bottom of your screen. It pops out a sidebar. You click on the 3 small dots, and it gives you the option to raise your hand. We do not appear to have any public comment on our closed session agenda item, so we will now adjourn to closed session at 6:07 p.m. Does Dr. Rudolph need to be made the host?
Yes, just a moment. I'm having a Zoom crash moment, but yes.
Yeah, I can't create a closed session until.
There you go. You should have host now.
Okay, give me a second.
Thank you.
Shelley, do I need to turn you into the co-host again?
Okay, at 6:45 p.m., we are reconvening the open session of the Mountain View Isthmus School Board meeting. And I would like to report out that no action was taken during our closed session today. We will now move on to the consent agenda. If there are there any comments or questions from trustees before I move to public comment on consent? Trustee Chang.
I'll be asking to move item D off the consent agenda or to discuss that separately.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions from trustees? Okay. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board regarding the consent agenda? If you would like to do so, you can raise your hand using Zoom or you can press *9 on your phone.
Just want to point out that Spanish interpretation for this is available for this meeting. If you're using a Mac or PC, click on the globe at the bottom of the Zoom screen. If you're on an iPhone or Android, it is in the options menu. Hey, interpretación al español disponible para esta reunión. Si está usando una Mac o una PC, haga clic en el globo en la parte inferior de la planta de Zoom. Si está en iPhone or Android, está en el menú de opciones.
Okay. Is there a motion regarding the rest of the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda minus item D.
Is there
Second.
a second? Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, on a motion moved by Trustee Wheeler and seconded by Trustee Blakely, the consent agenda minus item D was approved. We will now discuss consent agenda item D. The award of architectural services contract to Drilling Tarones Architect for this district office reconfiguration project. Yes, Trustee Chang.
Requested to pull this item for discussion. I intend to support this. But I pulled it because of its size so that the public can hear a summary of what was provided in the question and answer to the board trustees. I found the Q&A. The Q&A is posted on the Mount View Westman School site under the school board site, but members of the public may not know to go to see that. And I thought there was information there that, given the size of the construction, was informative, because some of that stuff may not be easily gleaned in the initial board report. So I'm just asking if whether it be Dr. Rudolph or Dr. Westover, a summary of what was presented in the Q&A regarding this project.
Yep. So we, over the course, since we've opened the building, which was essentially last year, we have continued to add more individuals. And the building was really built for our current needs. I don't know if we would say that it was built to expand, just because of the footprint where it's located, and sort of how the building's designed. And so one of the things we've done is we continue to shuffle spaces. For instance, as a result of COVID, we added 2 new technology team members, which we then required 2 tech members to move out of the technology wing area and move them over into the HR area. We have now added a communication specialist. We have added a wellness director. We now have an equity coach. And so what is starting to happen is we are really crunched on space. We also recognize that there is a issue of safety that's kind of paramount, where our front office staff is actually by themselves. And so we put in some aftermarket cameras. But really, I've done this a couple of times when a parent is upset. I've walked out to the front in the old district office because my office was within earshot. But in this case, we're not within earshot. All we have are monitors that sort of indicate what's taking place. And so part of the reason why the cost of it not in addition to our architectural services. The other piece is we have to move a bunch of firewalls in order to connect the office of the superintendent to the actual front office. So in the event that either Nancy or myself needs to move up there, someone can be right there. And it really allows us to sort of also add some additional spaces. It won't address our storage needs at all, but it will solve a safety issue. It will accommodate growth, which is badly needed, and it will allow us to keep everybody in the office as opposed to starting to spread them out throughout the district again, which has always been the goal since we've moved it. And we don't, the preschool area was intended to be a preschool, and what we're trying not to do is to go back over there and start using those spaces as offices again.
Trustee Blakely.
I had one question that I'd submitted that didn't quite get answered in the answers, which was, it said that what we're approving right now is the, I think just like the architectural drawings for about 22,000, a little under 22,000. And the summary sheet said that the estimated construction cost was 125, roughly. Obviously, we don't know yet. And I was wondering whether the 21 or 22 is part of the 125, or if that's on top of the amount we're paying right now for the architectural services.
Dr. Westover?
It's included.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from trustees? And I believe we need to go for a public comment again. If there's anyone from the public who would like to comment on this item, since it was pulled from consent, you can raise your hand on Zoom using the raise hand function, or you can press *9 on your phone to participate. We do not appear to have any public comment. Are there any comments from trustees? Trustee Chang.
Thank you, Dr. Ruff, for the information in the presentation there. I like that on the consent agenda, this was pulled out as its own item, so that it was easier to find. So one didn't have to go into the contracts to see this. I do think something of this size, I would like it to see it as a review and action item. When I think it's consent, I think the thing's more casual than something in the scope of 125,000. Just my own data point there. But I fully intend to support this.
Any other comments from trustees? Is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the service fee proposal and award of an agreement to Dryling Toronis Architecture in the amount of $21,720.
Thank you. Second?
my second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, on a motion made by Trustee Blakely and seconded by Trustee Berman, item D from the consent agenda is approved unanimously. We will now move on to communications. Item 6, we will start with communications from employee organizations. Do we have any representatives of employee organizations here tonight who would like to address the board? Does not appear so. We will move on to item 6B, district committees. Do we have any representatives of district committees here tonight who would like to address the board? All right, we will move on now to 6C, the superintendent's update.
All right, just a couple of things, just so the public knows. At the next board meeting on the 21st, we'll be talking about reopening. So I want to just put that out there. And the packet will be ready next week with all the information, the whole full deck. And then, of course, we have a series of community meetings coming up where we'll be talking about those, as well as focus groups and reopening task force. And so just want to let everybody know that is coming just across the board. We also have a cafecito next week, Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. That we will be having. All are welcome, but that is one that we do opposite ways translated for me as opposed to for everyone else. And then finally, I wasn't really going to talk about this, but I guess I was asked to. And so I'm going to put on my former teacher hat real quick. I'm not going to draw any pictures or anything like that. But I think there's a couple things that we need to think about in terms of what occurred this week. First, I don't think any of us, including the police officers who are on here, would believe that there is any action that we should not condemn violence whatsoever. Our Capitol has not been taken over since the War of 1812, when the White House was burned down, and the fact that that actually occurred brings up an issue. I also want to point out, before I talk about the impact it has on our kids, that if you go back over the last 4 years and you look at whether it was people in wheelchairs being dragged out of the Capitol building when they were protesting the Affordable Care Act, now Senator Warmack, who was arrested in the Capitol building. If you look at the response this summer, and then you compare that to the response, those 3 instances, and you compare that to the response that occurred, obviously there is something wrong here. There is something different. And so with Martin Luther King Day coming, I think it is important for us to talk to our kids. There are tons of role models out there who we can turn to talk about how to effectively protest, how to do it peacefully, and how to make sure that we don't look at this as a model for what should happen. There is never an instance, there is never a cause for us to resort to violence in this case, regardless of whether or not where our political views are. There is no reason why our congressmen and women, our senators, should ever fear for their life. And to put it in perspective, when the Capitol was actually taken over, you have somewhere in the neighborhood of the top, if President Trump was to pass, you had number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 in that building at the exact same time. So I guess what I would say is, if we are all about, discourse, honest discourse, and talking to each other and working through issues, if we believe in the tenets of diversity, then we have to talk to our kids that it is okay to disagree with somebody. It is okay not to like what somebody says, but it is not okay to resort to violence as your last word. There are so many other options. And I hope in the next week and a half that we talk about whether it's Gandhi or Martin, especially with Martin Luther King Day coming, or Saint Teresa, or anybody else that you feel is an adequate role model for peaceful protest, that you share that moment with your child to say and point out that what occurred on the Capitol Hill is the exception to the rule and should never happen. And I know a couple people who have mentioned that they have friends who were there. I haven't been on social media, so I don't know if any of my friends from Ohio were there, because we have some different political views. But at the end of the day, as someone, if you are truly an American, as people espouse to be, then there should never be a reason why we should turn on ourselves to kill other Americans, to go after, to try and prove a point. And it was unfortunate. It was it broke my heart, just as many of others. And I pray that over the next 13 days that it will get more peaceful. Even though today I do know that we had yet another incident with a Capitol police officer, and so I just implore all of us to take a moment and touch base with all of our kids, our students that we interact with, and talk about this message. And I do want to give a shout out to our principals, who even before this occurred had already put out ways to talk to kids about the election. And I would encourage everyone who's received that. And I believe Ms. Hausman's also put it out in our newsletter how to do it, but please use those as talking points. The last thing I want to say just real quick before we move on is I want to welcome, we just hired a communication specialist. She is a former student. Her first grade teacher is a principal in our district, and her father has been actively involved both in the city as well as the high school district. And so I just want to welcome Ms. Mitchner to the team so that, you know, everybody, I know we sent out an announcement, but she's a great addition and will be helping out Ms. Hausman tremendously with getting more information out, including her first act was tracking down what happened to our postcards, which apparently went from Mountain View to San Francisco and are now coming back south. So, you know, just welcome aboard, Ms. Mitchner.
Thank you, Dr. Rudolph. I appreciate you addressing the incidents yesterday as well for our community. We will now move on to item 7, community comments. This is the time reserved for community members to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board and administration welcome this opportunity to listen. However, in compliance with the Brown Act, the board is not permitted to take action on non-agenda items. If you would like to address the board, you can participate by raising your hand in Zoom. There is a participants tab at the bottom of the screen. You click on it, it pops out a sidebar, and there are 3 tiny dots in a box. If you click on that, it allows you to raise your hand. You can also press *9 if you are on a phone. I will wait just a moment. It appears that we only have one public comment. It will be Ms. Coogan. And so Ms. Coogan, you have 3 minutes. We'll give Dr. Rudolph just a second to get the timer up. Okay, you are all set, Ms. Coogan. Oh. She is not unmuted.
There you go.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Hi, I'm Jenny Coogan. I'm a Montaloma parent since 2015. I have a 5th grader and a 3rd grader. I've been on the PTA board since 2016. I'm a former VP of the Montaloma Neighborhood Association. I served on the district's Boundary Advisory Task Force and the Student Attendance Area Task Force. But I'm here today speaking on behalf of Preserve Montaloma Park with the support of the Montaloma Neighborhood Association. And I just want to share my comments about the plan to erect fencing specifically around the park area of the campus. This matters to me because when my daughter was a toddler and I was at home full time, I went to the park all the time and observed the school from the preschoolers' playground. I met other parents, I learned about the school community, and it's where I got excited to enroll my kids there. We would have the ice cream social out on the fields with the neighborhood, and that's where I got recruited onto the PTA. And for many years, I welcomed new neighbors and shared with them my positive experiences about the school, the teachers, and its values. As a PTA member, I've gotten to see up close how much we rely on and benefit from our neighborhood support, specifically from people who don't even have kids at the school. We invite them to our fall festival to play games and buy food at our bake sale. They've generously donated and volunteered for our Lego robotics program. They sponsor our kids in the walkathon, and they donate prizes for our fundraiser. And amid this pandemic, it's become clear that the park is a real lifeline for all of us in the neighborhood to keep safe and healthy and maintain our sense of community. And so it's for this reason we urge the district to delay the plan to erect fencing around the park. It would hurt our kids who need to recreate during the shutdown. And further, it would give us some time to think about a plan that could secure the school buildings without cutting off the park. I don't take for granted all the challenges that the district is facing with distance learning. It's just staggering. I know you're prioritizing our students, but speaking as a mom, I'm really more worried about like the socio-emotional impact of all of this and the academic losses than I am about dog walkers behind the ball field. Further, Montaloma enrollment really depends on our community support and engagement. We've lost way too many kids to the pandemic migration out of the city and the state. We're now down to just 2 classes per grade, so we've had to say goodbye to a lot of teachers. Fencing off the park just cuts a wedge between that school and community. It's Montaloma is losing a feature that could be that draw for future preschool parents who are once like me, wondering if a school nestled right in the heart of the neighborhood with its beautiful park was right for their kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coogan. So I see that Mr. Lambert also raised his hand after I had already declared a time for the speaker. However, we usually allocate up to 10 minutes for this item, and adding another speaker at this time would not go over that. So Mr. Lambert, you also have 3 minutes to address the board. Mr. Lambert?
So he needs to unmute himself.
Right.
Here I am.
There you go.
Hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I was fumbling around with the mouse, so a little slow there. My name is Bill Lambert, and I am a former trustee of the Mountain View Westman School District, and I've been a resident of the Montaloma neighborhood for 18 years. This evening, I'm speaking on behalf of the Preserve Montaloma Park Group, which is supported by the Montaloma Neighborhood Association. And I want to make it clear that I'm not speaking on behalf of the residents of Montaloma at this time. I would like to update you on the efforts we are making to engage the community. In mid-December, the district informed certain community members that the Montaloma Fence Task Force was being formed. The residents were being asked to complete an application that would be posted on the district website to express their interest in representing the Montaloma community on the task force. In response to the question from one of the residents about the election process, the district informed us that the applications that were being submitted would be made anonymous and then submitted to the district advisory committee. And the district advisory committee would select the representative from the Montaloma neighborhood. And as you know, the district advisory committee is made up of a representative from each of the schools within the district. The district asked us, the community members, to submit their applications by January 11th. A number of the residents in Montaloma felt that the community should select their own task force representatives. And to accomplish that, the Preserve Montaloma Park Group, in collaboration with the Montaloma Neighborhood Association, began organizing a process by which the community would be able to select their own representatives in a fair manner and in an inclusive manner. Beginning on New Year's Day, volunteers in the community distributed 1,100 flyers to the households in the Montaloma community, informing the residents of the district's plans to enhance school security around the school and the Montaloma Park. We provided a website where the residents could communicate, share their views, to sign petitions, to volunteer, and most importantly, to start the engagement process so that we could select our own community representatives. In the coming weeks, we plan to hold several meetings, inviting all members of the community who have signed up on the website to participate in the selection process. And after that, it's our intention to select representatives who will really represent all the different views of the residents of Mount Payne.
I apologize, Mr. Lambert. Your 3 minutes has expired, but feel free to further address the board with written comments. We certainly would like to hear the rest of your comments, so if you could email them to us, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Are there? Okay. We will now move on to item 8, review and action. Item A is naming the board representative for the county committee. Dr. Rudolph, I assume this is a presentation by you?
Yep, it's just real quick. So each district is asked to indicate on this form who they would like to put on. Name of a board member selected to vote in the county committee election. And so what the board or what staff is just asking is that you delegate someone to serve as a representative for Mountain View Westman School District.
Trustee Wheeler.
Yeah, typically the one person is the board president, and it isn't a lengthy process in a meeting.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other trustee questions? Okay, should we open it up now for public comment? If you are a member of the public and you would like to comment on this item, you can do so by clicking on the participants tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and then in the sidebar, clicking on the 3 small dots that will pop up an option to raise your hand. If you are calling in by phone, you can press star 9. We do not appear to have any public comment on this item. I will make a comment. I'm happy to serve, but I open it up for other trustee comments. All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we vote to approve to have our board president be our sole named representative to this forum.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, on a motion made by Trustee Wheeler and seconded by Trustee Chang, the board has voted unanimously to appoint myself to be our board representative for the county committee. We will now move on to item 9A.
Oh, can I
yeah.
clarify that? And this is what I was trying to explain at our last meeting. What this is the person who votes for who's going to be the representatives to the county committee. Each of the supervisorial districts have 2 members on that committee. I am currently one of the members, but an election happens every year. You know, so if people want to run for that spot, that's when they would do it. And then the process is as we established tonight, the board president would, when the election came down from the Santa Clara County Office of Education, the board president would vote. And that's what they said at our last meeting. Typically, our district discusses this, when it's time for that vote. But so this is what we did tonight is a very pro forma kind of thing. It's not a lot of work.
Oh, it's fine. Do you have an idea of when that vote may come down?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was like October. And then I think it's so each of the 2 representatives alternate in years of when they will. So if I choose to run, then I would do it then. I'll share hot off the press that I will likely not run. And I know that at least one other person in this supervisorial district has expressed interest to me to run for that spot if I didn't. And I don't know if there will be others.
Thank you, Trustee Wheeler. October is a long time away, so
Yeah.
we will see what happens, but thank you. We will now move on to item 9A for review and discussion. Tonight, we have a presentation from the Mountain View Police Department's Youth Service Unit, and I believe the Youth Service Unit itself will be presenting to us.
Yep, we have several officers on here, as well as Youth Services and Chief Chris. And so they've all been made co-hosts, so I'm gonna turn it over to them so that they can do their presentation. And they also have the ability to share the screen if need be. If not, just let me know and I'll pull the deck up.
Okay, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. First, I wanted to see if, Chief, did you have anything to say first?
No, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the show.
Okay. All right. Captain Campfield or Lieutenant Espitia, did you guys have anything to say before we start?
Nothing for me, just pleasure to be here and just here for any questions that anyone may have after the presentation.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is James Guevara. I'm one of the school resource officers, and I am going on my 14th year as a police officer, and this is my 5th school year as a school resource officer. All right, and I'll start the presentation here. Oh, sorry, folks. Hold on, let me put in a slide. It's
okay, it's just a typical Zoom meeting.
Hey, James, while you're doing that, maybe I could say something real quick just to fill in a little bit of time. I just wanted to introduce myself to those of you who I haven't met in person or virtually. My name is Chris Chung. I am your new police chief as of a week ago. So I hope to have the opportunity to cross paths with you all, if not virtually. I look forward to the day that we can all do this in person. Very much eagerly looking forward to that. So I'm very proud of the work that our youth services unit does day in and day out. And so thank you for having us here tonight.
Thank you, Chief. All right. So we were asked to do a presentation on who the youth services unit is and what we do in the schools. And we were asked in particular what we do in the middle schools, but just wanted to make it clear it's pretty consistent what we do in all the schools, stemming down from preschool all the way up to high school. And of course, we operate a little bit different according to the ages in the schools. So our unit, the youth services unit, we are a unit of 3 school resource officers. We do have 1 youth service coordinator, which is Elizabeth Mendez, and 1 sergeant, and that'll be Sergeant Scott Thomas. And we work with all 16 schools in the city of Mountain View and work directly with the youth within the community. And that does include private schools and any preschools. What do? We do a wide variety of things. We work directly with the elementary, middle, and high schools, the students, staff, and parents. We are at the schools primarily as teachers, mentors, and somewhat counselors, peer counselors with our youth. We do address concerns within the schools, and it could range from security issues or safety issues up to behavioral issues. Okay. We do make a lot of connections with families. Working for the city, we are connected to a lot of organizations that do offer services that could help families. So we do act like liaisons between the school, the parents, the students, between them and the city or the community. We do address criminal activity within our schools, and that's very rare that happens in the elementary schools, but we do address criminal activity or issues or potential criminal activity in the middle schools and the high schools. And we do spend a lot of time planning a lot of community outreach programs, youth programs. The staff members that know us, our big ones are Dreams and Futures and Cops That Care, and the mentoring, PAL mentoring program. All right, these are currently the programs that we do run. Dreams and Futures, Cops That Care, Shop with an Officer. We do a movie night. We do want to make it more than just one night. So when this whole COVID thing blows over, we definitely want to do more of those. We do have an Explorer program, a PAL mentoring program, which currently we have at Mauna Loma and Castro schools. We do, in a perfect world, we do want to do it through all the elementary schools. But currently right now, we're just at Mauna Loma and Castro. We do have a PAL boxing program, PAL net games, which is a tennis program. And we do home visits, and sometimes that's just the youth services unit that wants to follow up with different students stemming from elementary all the way up to high school for various reasons. It could be an issue that happened at school or an incident that happened outside of school. We always follow up. And DARE, which should be coming soon. We are working with the school district to find out the timing of DARE, which will launch with the 6th graders in the middle schools. All right, our program, Dreams of Futures. This is a 1-month program that happens typically in July. And this program began in 1996, and it started as a gang prevention program. We don't want to say we target the at-risk kids, but we work with the staff to identify the kids that would most benefit from it. It's not necessarily, currently it's not necessarily kids that are at risk with gangs. It could be at risk for any reason. So the program is 2 weeks each group. The first group we have is the 4th and 5th graders, and then the second group would be the 6th and 7th graders. And for each group we have approximately 50 to 55 kids. And again, like I said, the students are referred through school staff, some police staff, and community groups. So in a perfect world, we would love to have every kid in the program. It's just, it wouldn't be possible. We just don't have enough staff to do that. We do a lot of things. We do field trips, sports camp. We do a lot of educational awareness, including gangs, a little bit of drug, and currently vaping. But the big picture is that we are character building. So the big stuff that we want to instill in our students are the decision making and the social skills, so they can bring that into the school year. And bringing those skills into the school year, being positive and being more confident to making the right decisions and doing better, will help them improve academically and socially. Oh, right here. Our goal is to build confidence and self-esteem in the kids that we serve. Through positive support and reinforcement, these students will be able to make positive peer choices and disassociate themselves from negative activity or gang involvement. Cops That Care. As most of you know, we weren't able to have this year. I think this is the first time we had to cancel Cops That Care. This program started in 2002 with SRO Ron Cooper. For the school staff that has been around for a while, you guys probably remember who Ron Cooper is. By building relationships with school staff and students, we are able to identify the students and families in need. Currently, we are serving over 2,000 kids a year, and that is pretty accurate because we not only we have our kids elementary, middle, and high school, we do have their siblings. A lot of them have younger siblings that are toddlers that haven't started preschool yet. So there's a lot of kids that we service through that event. Because we build these relationships with the local businesses and community groups, we are able to successfully hold our event each year. So without the support of the community, we wouldn't be able to do this. And it's amazing how everyone pulls together and help us make this happen. It's awesome. Cops That Care helps build trust and relationships with our youth and their families. There's some pictures right there. The picture down on below on the right, we have a small group of kids that will volunteer at the Kiwanis Tree Lot, which is very awesome. So that's part of our Cops That Care program. It's like an extension. Mountain View PAL mentoring program, a prevention and intervention program. Currently, we're serving 4th and 5th graders at Castro and Mauna Loma. It's a whole school year program. Again, we focus on activities that focus on social and decision-making skills, team building skills. We do that through sports activities, arts and craft activities, and field trips. Like I said, these are the skills that help them make better choices and to give them the confidence to do better in academics or even in sports that they get involved with. Here's some of the pictures. There's our Sergeant Scott Thomas at Castro School. All right. Mountain View PAL Boxing, which started in 2008. This currently serves middle school and high school students. Education, we do a lot of stuff in education in physical fitness and nutrition. Even though you perform as an individual, we do a lot of team building skills, and that's the only way they could build themselves as an individual. Helps build strategy skills, building character through accomplishments as well as failures, and how to become respectful and humble to others in the community. I personally run the program, and this is how I started and how I got exposed to the law enforcement profession. Growing up in San Jose, I've had many officers and great mentors that brought me into San Jose PAL Boxing, and it's just a great honor to come full circle and for me to be involved in this program and to give back what I've learned. I want to emphasize the building character and how to become respectful and humble. I can't express enough to anyone that thinks that boxing is just a skill to learn how to fight. It's more than that. It's a discipline, and it teaches you a lot of lessons while you're training and going into the ring and fighting. And there's some pictures of me putting the kids in some torturous exercises. All right, the Explore program. While receiving training in law enforcement procedures, community policing, teamwork, and leadership, the Mountain View Police Explorer volunteer alongside police officers and other police professionals to assist the department in its mission. Qualifications: you must be between the age of 14 and 21. You must be a Mountain View resident or enrolled in a Mountain View high school. Duties performed: they do traffic control, security, community outreach at events like art and wine festivals and parades. They have meetings every first and third Wednesday of the month. And so in the classroom, they will do practical training. They will sit and listen to lectures, and most of it is related to law enforcement. And sometimes with their request, or if we find an opportunity, we'll bring another outside entity to expose them. Like one year, our sergeant brought someone in, someone from Waymo, the company Waymo, and just, that opened some of the eyes of our explorers. They do get involved in ride-alongs. We do field trips with them. They do have opportunities for conferences and camps on a bigger scale. And here's some of the photos of our explorers. We do, YSU does home visits. Home visits have always been an integral part of the services we provide to our students. It gives us a chance to see our students outside of school and to meet and get to know their parents. COVID-19 has eliminated seeing our students on campus this year. Home visits allow us to see and keep in contact with many of our students involved in mentoring, Dreams of Futures, and Cops That Care. We still do some home visits, but of course we are practicing social distancing, and currently we are being very selective and working with the school staff, being very selective of who we go to visit. If we could, we will contact them on phone, have discussions on phone calls or FaceTime or some sort of video chat. And there's some of the pictures, some of our kids. Why do we do, or why do we love what we do? We love making positive influence in each student and their families. We love building and maintaining the relationships, helping the kids learn to overcome adversity. That's huge. Teaching the kids the positive outlooks in life, and watching the kids, the students, succeed as they grow older. I can't express enough how we watch these kids grow into adulthood. We just had one of our explorers who we've mentored and seen grow up since elementary school. And when you become an explorer, you age out at the age of 21. And he just recently turned 21, and just saying that, it's, I don't know, some of you might relate, but it just makes you feel older. All right. And here's our contact information. Does anyone have any questions?
I am sure we will have questions. If you could stop sharing your screen.
Yes, absolutely.
And then I will be able to see the other trustees. Thank you.
And the other SROs, if you guys have anything to add into this or share. We have School Resource Officer Thomas Lowe, School Resource Officer Lloyd Kearns.
Thank you. Trustee Wheeler, I saw your hand go up. Oh, you're muted, Trustee Wheeler.
You're on mute.
There we go.
There we go. Not going to ask Officer Kearns to sing for us tonight, but I am going to ask, your presentation is, it seems like a very humane approach, and it's different than what we were reading about the decision of the town of Los Altos to pull their school resource officers from the Los Altos High School. So can you say more about how your program is different than the one in Los Altos?
I could say personally, you really don't get a grasp of what we really do until you interact with other youth services units and other police departments or other school resource officers. We go to training classes, and to become a school resource officer, you have to go through a 2-week training. I went to Southern California with Officer Rashida Smith, if you guys remember her. We went together, and we didn't go. She went a year after she already started the position. I went partly into my position, almost a year after my position, started my position. But just talking to other departments and other school resource officers on what they do, I could tell you the culture in Mountain View is a lot different. We focus on programs, and we definitely focus on the guidance and the mentoring, the teaching. We focus on the presentations. We are constantly discussing within our unit the current teen issues or the middle school issues. We focus on more what's going on with the student. We don't focus on primarily, well, we got to go out there and enforce law. We don't. It's different. I can't speak for other police departments, but I definitely could say that we do a lot more than what other school resource officers do in other police departments.
Yeah, Ellen, I'll add to that. Luckily, with the size of our department in Mountain View, and with the support and help starting from our chief and our command staff, as well as the support and help from all the school staff, principals, counselors, as well as all the support from our community, we're able to succeed and run all those programs that Officer Guevara spoke about regarding Dreams and Futures, Cops That Care, Mountain View PAL mentoring. We're able to provide all those programs for our students and our kids.
Trustee Blakely.
I had a similar question, or I think follow on from Trustee Wheeler's. I've talked to colleagues at other school districts, including Los Altos, to see how the programs that they have in their schools are implemented and how effective they are. And I've heard things about from some other police departments that maybe they don't get the training, or the training comes like not during the summer ahead of the school year. It's months after the resource officers have started becoming resource officers, and that there's not much longevity. It's like a little 1-year stint or a 6-month stint. And can you talk just a little bit more about how much training you guys get? And I mean, I know your faces are familiar. You've all been around for a while, but how long, if there's a term or an expected commitment to that role?
Okay, so for Mountain View, first off, this is not an assigned position. It's not like the chief or the command staff come and say, you're going to be an SRO. This is a position that someone is interested in doing or has a passion to do. So for our department, we go through a process, and whoever's interested will have to go through interviews, and not necessarily practicals or anything like that, or a test, but an interview. And the department, the chief, all the way down to the command staff to supervisors, will discuss their feelings on who would best fit, and then they'll make their choice on who they want in there. And truly, you have to have a passion to work with youth, and you have to have a passion to work in the school setting. Looking at all the names on the Zoom, I mean, I can't tell you the type of relationship we have with the staff. In the beginning, it is a learning curve because, like the school setting, there's changes every year. So when we become school resource officers, part of the training is getting to know your staff. Like I said before, to learn the case laws and the laws that pertain to the schools, the educational codes, that comes, and you'll get exposed and you'll learn. You'll not necessarily memorize all the codes or what goes on, but you'll get exposed to that in the school resource officer school, SRO school. But the biggest, I guess the biggest part of the training is getting to know your staff and getting to know the culture of the Mountain View Wisdom School or the MVLA school district. And then you go to each school campus and you find out their individual school culture and the personalities of the principals. So every year you're kind of redoing that because, as you guys know, sometimes the roles and the positions shift, or like now, COVID has changed everything. So how we maintain our relationship with the school staff has changed, and how we communicate has changed, and how our programs have changed, and we're still trying to figure out how to get our programs and how to be very effective and how to make sure that we are reaching our students and our kids, and how they're going to be able to receive and grasp everything that we're teaching them. So I hope that answered the question. Anything else from Lloyd or?
Wondering when you are, though, like you've been doing this for quite some time, and I recognize Officer Lowe and Officer Espedia. Is there typically a length of time? I mean, it may not be like a standard, but how many years?
Yes. So in our police department, when you are assigned to that specialty position, and this is considered a specialty position, you have it for 2 years with the option to extend another 2 years. So you could potentially work up to 4 years, 2 to 4 years. You probably remember Officer Bobby Taylor. He worked over that, and that's just the timing of what's going on currently with the police department, if the positions need to be extended or cut short. So that just happens. It happens where sometimes the officer will be extended longer than 4 years or maybe get cut short. It just all depends on the timing on what's going on within the police department.
And James, just to add on, you are in your 5th year, is that correct?
5th school year.
And for those who may recognize Officer Kearns, he is in his 2nd stint. So he went back to patrol and now returned to the unit. So that is also an option for officers who, like Officer Kearns, enjoy it and have such a passion for youth that they want to do it again.
All right. Are there any other questions?
Trustee Chang, and then Trustee Berman after.
I had a question about how all these amazing programs the police department allocates to our youth. What's the way to get feedback from kids to tweak and redesign programs and kind of allocate the resources in the most efficient way? Is there like a set review cycle? Is it casual? How do you get input from kids, especially kind of in the heels of the summer and in general, to make your programs better?
Okay, so I know for Dreams of Futures, because that's probably our longest program that we run, we do surveys at the end of the program for the students to fill out, and then we'll collect that and review them. And programs like Dreams of Futures is run solely on grant and money and donations. So with the grant money, the biggest one is through El Camino Hospital. that is one of the biggest pushes why we would do the surveys, just so that they understand that we are always looking to improve, always to meet the needs for the students and the families that that it affects as well. Cops That Care, we just go out and we talk to the students, we talk to the staff, and we're always looking for opportunities to improve. Liz, I think you could talk on PAL mentoring, how we get feedback from the kids. I can't remember, do we do a survey, or is it just merely a discussion with them? Can you unmute? You can't unmute.
Oh, it's fine.
Elizabeth Mendez. Oh, there you go.
Hi, sorry. We don't do a formal survey for PAL mentoring, but we are constantly having a discussion with the kids and an open dialogue about things that they would like to do, experience, and learn about.
And personally for PAL boxing, I have, obviously right now, COVID has stopped the training, but I am always asking my students or my boxers anything else that they would like to learn, or anything that I could do to improve their training. Most of the time when they're huffing and puffing and about to drop dead at the end of the 2-hour session, they're thumbs up and okay with what I've done. But I do, at the beginning of each school year, I do ask for what goals they want to meet. And sometimes I set challenging goals for them that I think are reasonable for them to reach. The biggest goal that I try to push my boxers is to get them in competition. And it sounds scary, but I always challenge them to go and compete at least once while they're still around with the youth program.
All right, Trustee Berman.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. My first is when you work with students and kids in the summer program, do you get to see these students? I know you mentioned this with Young Explorers and watching them really grow up, but do you see how your program has impacted the behaviors and development of students as they've gotten older? Do you feel like you have an opportunity to, really stick with some of those families and those kids as they go through our school system?
Yes, absolutely. And for almost, you know what, I would say about all the kids that go through Dreams of Futures they are knocking down our door to want to return the next summer. And so we follow up during the school year with the staff, and we just get through the staff members, our at-risk and school engagement facilitators. We follow up with them and ask their students that they referred to our programs, how are they doing? Do you see any improvement? And most of the times we see the improvement. And then there's the sometimes where they start going back to their old ways. And that's when we'll engage with them during the school year and have a chat and just motivate them or reassure them like, hey, this is just a bump in the road. You'll be fine. So let's get back to the school stuff and do better. Yeah, we do watch them grow academically, socially, and physically. I think when we see them physically growing, that's when it makes us feel a lot older. But yeah, we definitely do see them, how they develop. At times, it could be take a couple of times for them to go through the program. I know overall though, that's where we make the bond with the student, and also makes the bond with their families, because most of the time the families, the parents, their siblings, the siblings want to come to the program. The parents want their child to go back to the program, but it also opens the door for us to have that connection, have that open conversation, open discussions if anything else is going on at home or at school.
I do have a follow-up question, but I want to give others a chance to ask.
You should go ahead, Trustee Berman.
Okay. I have just a question about SROs that address, I think I heard you say in the presentation that SROs can come and address certain kinds of behavior. And I'm wondering if you can speak to that a little bit more, like what are some typical behaviors that you would address at one of our K-8 schools? And who would make that call for someone to, would it be sort of like an urgent call and you would show up in the moment? And what are sort of typical behaviors that you're seeing? And
you, again, you said in the elementary schools?
In K-8, any of our schools in Mountain View.
Any of the schools, okay.
Yeah.
So in our elementary schools, we do get the calls from the at-risk and the school and student community engagement facilitators. They are the staff that we work directly with when it comes to working with the students. Typically when they call us to come talk to a student, it's not the first time we've heard of the student. They communicate to us and say, hey, this student is having a hard time. This is what's going on. This is what they've been doing. It could stem from being disruptive in the classroom setting to being aggressive with other students, different types of behavioral stuff. When it comes to the point for us, when they call us to come talk to the student, by that time it's a repeated incident, and we'll come merely just to say, hey, we definitely want you to do better. Okay, we don't want you to get in trouble. Let's try something else. And I know there's talks about uniform presence on the school campus could be very intimidating, but I'm telling you, I almost 100% of the time, the kid wants us to come back. and we open that opportunity because we tell the kid, hey, if you think you're going to have a bad day, let your school staff know, and they'll call us and we'll come over and we'll sit down during recess. We'll come play Foursquare with you, something. We'll come hang out. And sometimes that's all it takes, just to have a conversation. I think just like my kids, if my kids, I'm telling my kids, stop doing this, stop doing that, all they hear is, dad's nagging. But if another adult who tells them the same message, they'll be more receptive because it's not their parents. It's kind of the same concept. They hear it from the school staff over and over again. So it's just a fresh face that comes in. And of course, all the kids love the stickers. So the stickers, the questions about what we do and what we wear on our uniform. In the middle school and high school setting, it's most of the time it's typical teenage issues that they are coming up with. And for us to come to talk to them, it's to the point where either there's just chronic runaways or somehow the parents have found out, hey, my kid is vaping. So, but when we have discussions with the students, we find out there's more to it and they've just gone down that path, and there's always opportunity for us to step in, to intervene, and just help bring them back. So.
And if I can expand, sorry, if I can expand just a little bit on top of that. One of the great things, the wonderful things about the SRO program is that while our patrol officers are running around from calls and may not have the time to invest in the youth and invest in the relationship because they have to go to another call, this is the emergency. This is the urgent calls that we deal with as SROs, and we have the time to invest in our youth and in that and building a relationship so that they will call us, or that that relationship we have with school staff so that they will give us a call. So this is that priority call that patrol officers may not have time to invest in, that our SROs are dealing with day in and day out.
Trustee Berman, do you have any further questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay, Trustee Chang.
Thank you. I had a question about the police department's opinion of using restorative justice. And if they have an opinion, do they think, is there any way, are there ways where you think that this idea of using restorative justice or related things like youth courts or peer juries and peace circles, is that something that you think there is a potential for us to do in Mountain View, whether with the schools or just curious if, because I see community, it's often reported in the news of cities like Chicago and that do restorative justice as a primary way of intervening with kids.
Hey Lloyd, did you want to talk? Oh, go ahead, LT. Did you?
I was actually. I'm sorry. I was actually going to just say something that the discipline approach that we use doesn't impact the work that the police officers do. So whether or not we do restorative justice within a district is an internal conversation, but it won't. I just want to be clear: it won't impact the work that MVPD does.
Oh, Officer Kearns is muted.
There we go. So restorative justice, we've had restorative justice in the police department before. In my first stint as a school resource officer, restorative justice was a huge part of the program, working with the youth, DAs, and I don't know if some of you remember Officer Crawford. He was a champion of restorative justice. We used to have kids come out and wash buses when they got in trouble, as opposed to them going into the system as far as a violator. Restorative justice was wonderful. It kind of went away because it was ran through the district or through the district attorney's office as a recourse for kids who were first-time offenders. It was wonderful, but then it kind of went away. So the Mountain View Police Department is very aware of what restorative justice is. And if that program were to come back, whether it be through the district or through the DA's office or through probation, we would love to be a part of, at least me personally, because I have personal experience with restorative justice, and I think it works. It gets kids out there kind of giving back to the community as part of their their violation, whatever that violation would have been. And it worked out very well. I think it was a budget thing, because I'm not sure if it was a county program, the county paid for it. But again, a lot of things come down to budget, right? So, but we would love, Mr. Chang, that if that's something that the district would be interested in bringing back, we have some experience with it. So we would love to entertain it and talk about it and see what we can do as a police department to facilitate that.
Just to add on to that, I know when I first started as an SRO, we worked very closely with our community DA, Angela Alvarado, who grew up in Mountain View. And I know when the whole social media, I don't know, the different stuff that the kids could do on social media, when that started to become a problem, she worked with Officer Smith on doing a program where it was education. Hey, you cannot do this. And in particular, I'm talking about when the high school students were sending each other nude photos. And so before they would get entered into the system or have to go to juvenile court to talk about their case, District Attorney Angela Alvarado worked with Rashida Smith, and they put something together where they would have these programs where they educate the kids maybe once or twice. But of course, if they start repeating afterwards, then it goes into the justice system. But that was one part that I know that we did with the county.
I mean, it also sounds like if it was a county-run program, that's an opportunity for advocacy by our community members or school board members upwards to the county.
Absolutely.
I had a question about, so you all working with kind of issues that directly affect youth in our communities, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see our students facing? I know there was, a little bit of a discussion about the HEROES program was started in response to gang activity. I don't know if that's as prevalent now. We don't hear about it much at the school board level. Vaping, what are some of the things that you see our students encountering and trying to navigate?
So I could tell you currently what we're dealing with is mental health. And for the obvious reason, we are in a different world now, and our kids are just missing a lot of social, the big social aspects of their lives. This is the time where their personalities are building, their characters are building, and they're just missing that personal socialization with their friends, and including even conflict resolution. They're not learning how to resolve conflict when they're around their peers. They're just missing that part. And Officer Kearns and Officer Lowe can tell you a lot of things that we are currently doing is doing the home visits with elementary and middle school kids, because they're not logging on to Zoom. Things are happening at home. Parents are just having a hard time and just don't know what to do.
I'll add to that. James and I, we've had discussions about that. And one of the things that I think that is incumbent upon the leaders, whether they be locally, through the county, or even as far as the state, is they really have to think about the kid's well-being, because a child develops in these years that they're sitting at home in front of a computer, and without that getting out and like James was saying, learning how to deal with issues and their and socializing, it's really causing a big problem that I think some of our administrators, not necessarily at the district level, but the guys that's making decisions in the state, I think they're missing that. They're missing that part that, yes, we're in a pandemic and we're doing the best we can with the pandemic. But if you're giving up, if the pandemic is, and it is serious, and I understand that, but a lot of the studies are showing that kids are very resilient with it, and they're dealing with it. And but what we're doing is we're taking children to protect them from the pandemic, but the mental health is deteriorating. And so we got to find a way to bring both of them together, where we are protecting our children from this pandemic, but we've got to pay attention to their mental health, because if a kid's mental health is not there, then they can't thrive and they can't be who they're supposed to be. We went out on a kid this week, a 6-year-old, brilliant, out of the district. He threatened that he wanted to hurt himself, and he got it off the internet. And after we went and we spoke, and the officer went out and talked to him, it was really something he was just kind of regurgitating from the internet. But the issues were real with him, and he is a very, very, very brilliant student. At 6 years old, he was making statements that having adult conversations. And again, his questions were, why are we doing this? Why are we at home? How come we can't go to school? And then who are you? What gives you your authority? This is a 6-year-old. What gives you your authority to tell me that I can't go out and play? And so we don't want to stifle their ability to grow and to become who they are. And I think this pandemic, if we're not very careful, I think we can do more harm to our youth than the pandemic itself. And so these are some of the things that I think, as a guy that's out there and I'm talking to kids and I'm seeing kids, I'm going to these service calls, these are the things that we're seeing. And of course, we want to convey that to you because you are the district leaders, that maybe you can have some insight into that and start discussing that about how do we get our kids back slowly but surely back into being kids again.
Thank you, Officer Kearns. So a question that I get often from parents is they're trying to understand the role of police in schools, and with the social and cultural and media moment that we've kind of been in for the last year, it's been a pretty active conversation. And so I'd love to kind of help parents understand the process when we reach out to police officers around an emergency situation at a school, or if the mandated reporting process, everyone who works in our district is a mandated reporter by law, which means that if they suspect, if they see evidence of abuse or reports of abuse from a student, suicidal ideation, self-harm, those types of things, they are mandated to report to Child Protective Services that this has happened. And that report is done anonymously. And then Child Protective Services may contact police officers to do a check on the child or the home situation or whatever may be going on. I'm wondering if you could kind of help describe kind of your process when you what are the things that you do get called to schools for? Is it rare? Is it often? Like, help parents understand kind of how, because my impression is that we don't have you all hanging out at our schools all the time. You do a lot of really positive programming, you do presentations, and you build these mentoring relationships, and then those are the kids that you're mostly following up on, and then you help us with emergencies. So I'm wondering if you can walk us through that a little bit.
Okay, Lloyd, did you want to say something on that?
Yeah, so in the Mountain View Police Department, anytime that a child protective, a CPS report comes across, our patrol officers are probably the one first to get that call. If it has to do with a child, then that report's going to come over to the Youth Services Unit. And then, so what you're going to have is the patrol officer is going to do the initial investigation. But usually what they'll do, they'll reach out to us first because they know we have the relationship with the kids, and we can give them a little bit more feedback about, what's going on with the kid. Do we have any history with the kid? As far as kind of getting a hold of the parents, because sometimes they can't get a hold of the parents. And so we'll assist in that. And then if it's a kid that's on our radar that has some mental issues, we tend to usually go and follow up on all of those kids. There's not a lot of those that we have to go to. And then I think what some of the issues are with the CPS reports is that as a mandated reporter, the staff has to always give us a call, and one of the things that we want to, we love to do training with your staff to understand that as a mandated reporter, the penal code says you have to report that whatever that potential crime is. You can report that crime to CPS or the police department. You don't have to do both, one or the other. So what happens sometimes, and this is no fault of anyone's, is that it'll go to CPS. CPS will make the call, and if it's after hours or something like that, we won't get it immediately, and then they'll fax. I'm not sure why we are still faxing things, but CPS still faxes things to us. So it goes to our communications department, communication gets it, and they dispatch it immediately. But now we've lost maybe 2, 3, 4 hours at worst case scenario. On a good case scenario, if it's between the hours, we might lose 30 minutes to an hour. Well, I think that's kind of unacceptable, because what if that kid is really, really, really in having issues? And so what some of the things that you could do for immediate response is that teacher or that staff member can call the SROs, because that's what we are. We are your liaison to, if you have issues, whether it be a kid, whether it's a CPS report, you get a hold of us and we can do that immediately, get out there and assess that situation, or at least get a patrol officer out there and assess the situation immediately. So that's one of the things that we would love to do training with you guys about, because too many times I get these reports and I'm like, okay, so when did it happen? 16 hours ago? Because it came in after hours or something like that. So that's one of the things that we can do to maybe speed up that process so we can get to our kids and assess what's going on with them. Now, as far as how we deal with these things, so the report will come in. We will contact the school immediately to speak with the what we call the RO, the person that's reporting it, and get more information. And then we will contact the child and the parents, and we will interview them to find out what's going on. Is there something immediately that has to happen? If we feel like we need to bring a CPS person in, the only time we would bring in CPS is if we feel like the child needs to be taken from the home. So we don't tend to do that ourselves. We partnership with CPS. They'll come in and do a 300 or a 601 or something like that to bring the kid out of the home. The Mountain View Police Department is the investigating department. CPS doesn't investigate. They don't have the authority to arrest and or investigate those type of crimes. The Mountain View Police Department is the organization that does that. Now, they are kept in a loop because they keep these extensive files. And like I said, if they want to remove a child from the home, they would do that part. But we do the investigations, and that's a good thing because our school resource officers are trained into doing that type of stuff, into sitting down and talking to a kid, into getting down to their level and speaking with them and trying to ascertain what happened or who did what, who touched you or who didn't touch you and things like that. So once we make the determination if there was a crime, then it's moved on and it's investigated, and it's possibly, depending on the type of the crime, it goes to our detectives and then for charges to be filed. The kid is probably going to be taken out of the home at some point if the parents are involved. If the parents are not involved, the county is very, very hesitant in removing a kid from the home if it's not the parent that's involved. If it's an uncle or something like that, we have to make sure that there's no access to the kid and things like that. But if there's no access and the parents have got the kid, then the kid can stay home. Because the last thing that they want to do is disrupt that kid's what's going on in their life. And sometimes the parents are what they need the most. Of course, that's if the parents aren't the suspects. So a CPS report can be anything. I've gone out to a CPS report that a child fell off a chair and someone saw it and thought that, oh, maybe he was pushed, and they actually just fell. So we'll go out and we investigate it. We have a policy that we investigate everything that comes into us. So nothing's going to be like, oh, that didn't happen, or we're going to push it off. And you know, they're very important and they're very serious investigations. And we do all of them. Now, we don't get a lot of them, which is good, because that means kids are not being victimized as much as people would say they are. But what we have seen is more calls for the mental health of kids and dealing with that. Now, we're not mental health workers. We're not. So we can go and assess that situation, and then we'd have to refer that to someone who has the expertise in doing and dealing with the mental health of a kid. So I'm not sure if that's pretty much the ballpark. If it becomes if it's a crime, it gets investigated as a crime, it gets documented as a crime, and it goes off to the detective to handle it. If it's not a crime, if it's a service miss, and I'll be honest with you, I want to say a high percentage of those calls, what we call a service miss case, which means it's documented, but there's no criminal investigation or criminal charges brought against the person.
Thank you. I think another challenge that parents have talked to me about, and I think you all have done some parent education work as well, some parent education programs. So maybe you can speak to that. I know there was an issue at one of our schools where we do have a fair number of people in our community who may have recently arrived from other countries. We also have a fair amount of undocumented students. And so for undocumented families, first, there's a real fear about approaching anyone involved with kind of systems and institutions, but especially the police, because they're really, ICE is like a whole nother issue that I don't want to go into, but our children have seen community members taken away by ICE, right? So I know there's fear in our undocumented community, and I understand where it comes from. And so things come up like people not understanding the laws about having children in car seats until a certain age, or having them buckled up, and they come through to drop off or pick up their kids, and then a mandated reporter sees a child out of a car seat and has to call it in. And then it's terrifying for the family that gets, that is engaged around that, because they might not be documented. So I'm wondering if you can talk about kind of how you all approach our undocumented community, and then also how you approach parent education.
I'll talk a little bit about that, just on my perspective or my experience early on as an SRO. And I think this is when Lieutenant Espitia was my sergeant. I was on one of the elementary school campuses, and I noticed some literature that was left at the front lobby area of that particular elementary school. And I started reading it, and it was literature on telling our undocumented families never to answer the doors to police officers because they'll deport you, and so on and so on. And I could tell you right off the bat, we are not ICE. We're not immigration. We don't enforce immigration laws. Okay. If anything, we try to reach out and give services to help our families. But because of that fear, sometimes our families don't want to accept those services. At the time, and this was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I think in one of our challenge team meetings, I brought it up and asked, or I expressed the frustration for us as school resource officers and the law enforcement community. Our undocumented community are victims of crimes, and that makes it difficult for them to report, the crimes that they are victims of. And so that makes it even harder for our job to figure out what happened, who did it, and to really get the person that did this off the street. So I expressed how frustrating it is to, one, tell that community, our community, that don't answer your door to police officers, and then two, it wasn't accurate, because we're not, ICE is a different entity of law enforcement, but we don't work in that capacity. There are times where we do have to get ICE or other law enforcement entities involved, but it's a case by case, and it's usually a higher profile type crime where we have to get immigration or ICE involved.
And that has to do mostly with adult type crime. We don't, ICE is never, we've never, in my 24, going on 25 years of service with the city of Mountain View, have we ever had ICE come in or any kind of anyone from that type of enforcement in Mountain View working with our kids under the age of 18 or 18 and under. So it would be all of our juveniles. Never, ever has that happened. Adults is different, but again, we don't have control over that. And I do know that the city of Mountain View and the police department, we have policy when it comes to dealing with ICE and what our role is with them. And it's a non-starter. We know we have a huge minority community in Hispanic citizens in our, or undocumented workers in our city. And so our job is not to judge them. That's, like James said, that's not our responsibility. We are there to educate, to mentor, and to give and provide services from the police department, from the city of Mountain View. So when we do find that there's a violation of the law, whatever it is, whether it be a seatbelt or the kid has done some type of a physical assault against someone, it's all handled in-house. Remember, juvenile law is way different from criminal law. And so juvenile law is about rehabilitation, the consequences, having the kid understand the consequences of what he did. Hopefully he's remorseful about it. And then we get him right back into society, school, whatever they're doing. That's what juvenile law is about. It's not about putting them in jail, putting them in handcuffs and sending them off to juvenile hall unless the crime fits that. But we're talking about like bad crime, guns, weapons and things like that. And so the way we handle that here in the city of Mountain View, in my experience, and the chief could probably speak to it regarding our policies with ICE, is that I don't want to call it a safe haven, but
sanctuary.
But it is a place where we try to let our public know that you do not have to fear ICE, not in the city of Mountain View.
Thank you.
And Devin, I'll add to that. I've had some great training. I went to the San Jose Police Academy back in 2006, and we had a lot of hours of cultural diversity training down there by a great Lieutenant Calderon down there. And I'm Chinese, but you know what? Yo hablo español también. Yo estudio para 3 años en la escuela. And I go to calls with Hispanic families, and I try to use my Spanish to talk to them, explain to them I love the language of Mexican food and of soccer. And I'm there to just help them, whatever issues they have with their kids. I could care less about their documentation status. I'm not there for that. I'm there to help them, try to help them solve their problems with their kids and give them advice on that.
Thank you. And then I thought I saw Trustee Berman's hand pop up. Yes, ma'am.
So Chief Guevara, Officer Guevara, you mentioned how a lot of those cases, when you go to schools, ends up being, there was a term for it, was it failed reports or failed? Can you remind me what that term is when there wasn't a crime that was committed, you responded to a situation?
Failed service or
failed
something?
Service.
Oh, it was I think that it's called a service miscellaneous.
Oh, it's short
it's
for
service
miscellaneous.
Yes, thank you. Well, the service miss, it makes, because you expressed there that most of the time it is a service miss. And maybe I'm thinking of it incorrectly, but it makes me wonder around, when we do call officers to our school sites, if it's a service miss, wondering if maybe there's a disconnect around the reasons why a school site might call an officer, if it's maybe not quite a match for maybe what the need is, or if what other things as a school site. I guess what I'm thinking about too is, Doris, and maybe this is a question for Dr. Rudolph, is do our school sites feel like they're normed in sort of the reasons why they would call a police officer or an SRO to come and support the school?
So, sorry, doctor. Let me clarify on the service miscellaneous part of that. If we have to document the service miscellaneous, we do that for whatever incident it is. We document that because if there's a potential that it could escalate into a crime or into a worse situation like mental health, like if there's statements that don't quite get them into the, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the 5150 hold. If it's, we need to document it because we could see there's a potential for it to go to a 5150 hold. Or if there's an incident where a student is just getting aggressive with other students, we could see there's a potential for a battery on campus or some sort of incident where someone's going to get hurt. So we will document that incident with the service miscellaneous. As far as working with the school staff, there's constant communication. If something is just starting to brew up, let's say there's two students that there's obvious tension on campus. Well, if this was on campus before COVID, if there is obvious tension, the school staff, the at-risk or the school and community engagement facilitators, they would start their engagement with those students and figuring out what's going on. And if they see that this is just continuing and they feel like something is going to happen and now there's more kids involved, then they'll say, hey, can you have a discussion with these two kids or these group of kids? Because our goal is to prevent them from committing a crime or hurting each other or hurting themselves. So there's a continuous discussion with these incidents. And we work with the school staff, even with the assistant principals, the principals. We work together to come up with different ideas on how do we work with this kid to have them not do these things. And sometimes it's a conversation with school resource officers, school staff, and parents, so that everyone's on page and we're supporting the kid and guiding them the right way.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know we had put this on as a 40-minute presentation, but we have had a lot of questions. And I think it's because we really value your work and your time, and we want to make sure that our community understands what you do. I have one last hard question, and then we'll move to public comment. And again, like I see part of my role as asking the questions that parents have been asking me, because this is a venue where they can be answered. So another thing that has come up is funding. A lot of the mentoring, connecting students to resources, parents have asked me, why aren't we funding as a city guidance counselors versus school resource officers? And there are unique things about both of those positions. I'm wondering if somebody would be able to talk about that, because it is a common question, but I think it's better to ask the questions and discuss them than to kind of make assumptions or not understand how things are set up right now.
If I may, I might try to tackle that one just to give a little oversight. I think sometimes it's understanding and educating the public and the parents on which buckets of money and where they come from and what services those go to. So, you know, when you're talking about police services, you're talking about a city budget. But a lot of times in the national narrative, you'll hear this reference to like mental health counselors, which is typically a county funded resource, right? And so you cannot very easily, and I think you all know this, or even school districts are another bucket, right? You can't really take funds from one bucket and transfer it to another, right? It just doesn't work that way. So to your question, having that type of funding go to counselors instead starts to present that type of question, because then is it a school only counselor? Is it a district only counselor? Then the follow-up question is, should it be a district funded thing? And then you go back to my first point. Well, how do you transfer city funds to a school district, right? So I think that's a challenge. And I think what the other backdrop you have is over the decades, it has become more and more convenient to kind of put the burden of a lot of these miscellaneous types of things right into law enforcement, and I think most chiefs in the region would tell you, yeah, sure, we would love it, for a lot of these kind of non-police calls you hear about to be funded by the county or any other entity to help us to that. But until we kind of get to that point, at least from my perspective, law enforcement becomes the leader to at least point people in the right direction to the services we have. It's not a perfect system, but I think you can tell the passion that our staff has here. It's not about arresting or citing kids. It's about getting them help in the best way possible.
Thank you. So again, another opportunity for advocacy at the county level is supporting, looking at what happened to those restorative justice programs. And then I know that the county has been doing a lot of work about mental health, but we have seen it's a growing issue. Trustees, are there any other further comments before I move on to public comment? No, okay, thank you. If you are a member of the public and you would like to comment on this item, you may raise your hand at this time in Zoom. You can click on participants at the bottom of your screen. It will pop up a sidebar and there's 3 little dots in a box. You can click on that and it will give you the option to raise your hand. If you're on a phone, you should be able to press *9. I'm going to wait about 15 or 20 seconds to give people an opportunity to figure out how to do all of those things. And then I will allocate time for public comment based on how many comments we have come in. And Dr. Rudolph, do we have any written comments that were submitted on this item?
Yep, there's one written comment.
Okay. All right, so at this time, I see that we have 2 hands raised for public comment and we have 1 written comment. We usually allocate 10 minutes total for public comments for most items. Since we have 3 people who, including the written comment, who would like to comment, we will allocate 3 minutes for each speaker. If you have not raised your hand yet and you realize midway through that you wish you did and you want to make a comment, please feel free to email the trustees at trustees@mvwsd.org with your comment. But after this point, I will not be taking further raised hands for public comment. So we will start with Mr. Lambert, and we will allocate 3 minutes for your comment.
Oh, thank you very much. I know Armando very well. Both him and I are on the board of the Day Worker Center of Mountain View. Yeah, it was a very inspirational presentation. My comment, really, it's not a question, but a comment for Mr. Kearns. Are you aware of the Fresh Lifelines of Youth program in Mountain View? And of course, the founder of that organization, Krista Gannon, is a resident of the Montaloma neighborhood, and she's just a phenomenal woman. I can't say enough about her. One of the most impressive people I've ever met in my life. And I would just encourage you, I see people nodding their heads, and I really encourage you to interact with her, as fully as you possibly can, because she has done a marvelous job for the South Bay and the East Bay now, and actually she's established a nationally recognized program for restorative justice in the United States. Really, it's very, very impressive. So that's my only comment.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. we will reset the clock, and Sandy Pewitt, you will have 3 minutes to comment as soon as our clock is reset.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Yes, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Sandy Pewitt. I'm a parent at Gabriela Mistral Elementary, which is on the Mistral Castro Latham school site. I have police officers in my family. I have never had negative interactions with a police officer despite numerous traffic offenses. Please don't hold that against me. We all wish that there was a stronger police presence yesterday in our nation's capital. And thank you, Dr. Rudolph, for your comments about that. Also, Mountain View Westman School District Police are generally extremely polite, kind, and make all efforts to be sociable and approachable, and I always wave at you when I run. I have heard of some negative or confusing experiences from people in our school, at our school site, and also people who live in our RV community along Crisanto and some of our other safe parking areas. And I am also aware that Mountain View has had a long history of segregation, not necessarily intentional segregation, and also gang violence, mostly due to socioeconomic differences in opportunities in the areas here. And then I also grew up in the Dallas area in public schools, and in middle school and high school had, you know, a strong police presence in the schools that I attended. So my last piece of context is that we are a sanctuary city, which makes Mountain View a place, as one of our trustees noted, that people come to feel safe, and they may be people who come from other countries where there are different laws and or a different relationship with law enforcement. And so even after, my point is, even after your very comprehensive and positively oriented presentation tonight, I, as a United States citizen who has a positive orientation towards the police, I still struggle to understand the circumstances when uniformed police presence is needed for discipline issues, especially at elementary schools, where students under the age of 10 are witnessing uniformed police. I also struggle to understand why a uniformed police officer would be called for a mental health issue in a 6-year-old that is not involving potentially, you know, life-threatening or other immediate abuse issue. This is not necessarily, as you mentioned, something that you can immediately control. So I take this as an issue that necessitates advocacy, but I would really, really strongly encourage additional training and communication with parents about why police presence is needed on campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pewitt. And then Dr. Rudolph, I believe you will read the written comment that was submitted.
Give me 1 second. I'm only going to read, since the actual comment is both in Spanish and in English. Since we have an interpreter, I am just going to read the English version. So let me start the timer here. Hello, hold on 1 second, let me make sure I got the right. I don't see who the person's name is, so I apologize for that. But hello, I'm a resident of Mountain View for 21 years and 4 children who are in the Mountain View Westman School District. I want to comment that during the time my children were in schools, my children never had any problems with any officer or anyone else, but looking to help in the classrooms. And during the hours, I believe and wish that the officers continue to support our youth in our community. And I would love for it to go all the way down to elementary schools. And subsequently, I have many experiences, but when the officers are in the school supporting youth, they help them a lot through Although the boys don't see it like that, but I think that teaching and advice and goals are important because we're many communities and each one looks at an officer in different ways, but look at it a lot of respect. So they also made the boys have more respect for their parents, teachers, and at a time when respect, we have passed many stages in schools. The most important thing is the officials and the programs that they had support the parents. But unfortunately, I do not know what has happened with the money or how the district handles that, that we are left with nothing. I hope and I wish that it is essentially to have officers. Thank you for not, thank you, not everything is bad. There is also a lot of communication between them and the boards. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will now open it up to comments from trustees. Trustee Wheeler.
Yeah, so, yeah, here we go. I joshed Officer Kearns earlier, and I want to use this opportunity to say that a lot of us on this, in this meeting, know each other through Leadership Mountain View, and that's how I know that Officer Kearns is an excellent singer, because he sang at Leadership Mountain View graduation one year. So I would encourage, so not only is this an excellent program, but it's an excellent program that introduces disparate members of the community to each other. So I know all of these officers through Leadership Mountain View or Challenge Team. And somebody mentioned Challenge Team earlier. So, you know, it's an example of, I think in Mountain View, we do a lot of things well. And one way we do them well is by getting to know each other. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you already. And if you haven't joined Leadership Mountain View, I know that a lot of us have. I would recommend it to you. And I'm looking at Laura Berman. I know you just finished the program, and Chris Chang and others. And also Challenge Team. Normally the second Thursday of the month in the morning through the police department. So you could look up challengeteam.org. And that's my little pitch.
Thank you. Other comments from trustees? Trustee Blakely.
Didn't want to make a pitch, but I wanted to thank all of you, both for your time this evening, but much more so for what you do with our community. And I feel very grateful and lucky to live in a community like Mountain View that has such dedicated, you know, resources that put such emphasis on our youth, and especially in comparison to other communities where it's just a rotation, nobody gets training, nobody really cares, they just want to get through it. I really appreciate what each of you do for our community, so thank you.
Trustee Wheeler.
Yeah, I forgot to say this when I was talking about Challenge Team. So we've been asked to suggest agenda items for Challenge Team meetings. And I think this would be an excellent agenda item now that you have this slide deck put together, is to, you know, show this to the Challenge Team members. And then it would spread out from there also.
Other trustee comments? Trustee Chang.
Just echoing, I'm inspired by this shared commitment for the kids at Mountain View. And you know, when I look at this participant list of welcoming our new chief of police, and we have the administrators and principals on this call, and we have allocated it and spent this 2 hours to show our common commitment. I wonder if in the future, if we ever convene this group of talent and people who love our kids this way, if we can perhaps in the future do a format of like a design thinking workshop, where if we had stakeholders from the police department and the school district, where if we are, it's so rare that we've gathered 2 hours to put all these people in one room. What a great opportunity in the future to take a few of us and a few of them and to like take this common commitment and see if there's a new way to envision taking all these resources and designing something, you know, that's truly, I don't know, just like there's the energy here, the money's here, but I wonder if what if we miss something if we don't brainstorm together? So I just thank everybody in this room for spending all this time with us. All these police officers have so much they do already, and here they are with us for these 2 hours. So thank you. And I look forward in the future if we can find some way in a different format to design something. Thank you.
Trustee Berman, do you have any comments?
I just want to thank you again, Officer Guevara. I just want to point out to you just how in your presentation, I can just tell how much you care about the students that you work for and for the youth in this community, and how passionate you are about the programs you run. So I just want to thank you for bringing that to our community, and the way you convey it to everybody watching. So thank you so much. And I'm also really worried along with you about the mental health and the toll on mental health that we're experiencing now. And I hope that together we can find ways to address it. Thank you.
All right, and then I would like to add before we kind of close out this item, I truly appreciate the time that you all have given to coming to present tonight. And I see this not only as kind of educating the board, but also providing education for our parents and families about the work that you do. So it's extremely valuable. It will be on YouTube and people can watch it whenever they want. And Chief Shung, it is a pleasure to see you in your new capacity. Congratulations. We really welcome your presence here tonight. I agree that Challenge Team is an amazing place, and I encourage, it is open to, is it open to the public?
Yes.
Okay, it is open to the public, but it's a meeting where everyone who works with youth in Mountain View and Los Altos comes together on a frequent, I guess a monthly basis. That design thinking you're talking about, Trustee Chang, like I think that is a really powerful place, because you get a room of almost 100 people who care about and are committed to youth from all different sectors, and are interested in addressing issues with our students. But we appreciate your time. We thank you for your work, and we hope you stay safe and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, we will now move on to item 9B, the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee. And I believe we will have a presentation from Dr. Westover. Who is muted? There we go.
Good evening. Okay, let me share my screen. So this is a follow-up to, so each time we hold a parcel tax oversight committee meeting or a bond oversight committee meeting, we'll upload all of the documents that we reviewed to the board, so you're able to see what the committee talked about and what the presentation was. So I'll be going through the presentation that I went through with the parcel tax oversight committee, so the board is aware. All right, so connecting this back to our strategic plan of resource stewardship, we always want to make sure that we're using everything available to us and utilizing various resources to support the needs of our students. Measure B, as a reminder, was a school district levy of $191 per parcel for 8 years, and it generates about $2.8 million annually. With an independent oversight committee, which is the committee that I just spoke about earlier, and with an exemption for seniors and the guarantee that the funds stay local. It was approved in 2017, and these are a list of some of the items that it can support. Maintaining small class sizes, maintaining outstanding music and art education, and supporting core academics. Looking through some of the programs that our parcel tax funds, it funds after-school enrichment. So each school site is provided after-school enrichment based on the needs of the schools. Some of the examples of the programs include this year, online programs such as chess, creative writing, and math exploration. So as I'm talking through all of these programs have historically been supported by our parcel tax, but they have had changes this year because of our instruction style. So the after-school enrichment is still continuing and the funds are still provided to the school sites. Square Panda, it's a research-based program that supports literacy foundation for students. It focuses on building hands-on phonics instruction. So in the picture, you can see a student that's touching the letter. What's really neat about this program is the kids actually get to tactily touch the letters, and it's individualized for each student. So this year, instead of having it be in our kindergarten and first grade classrooms, we collected all the sets and they are in our preschool's hands. So they're at home with the kids. We're still providing physical education. These are credentialed teachers for K through 5. So the middle school still has PE, but physical education is for first grade through 5th grade is supported by our parcel tax. Right now it's being provided asynchronously through distance learning. And here are some screenshots of what the kids see. It also supports our at-risk supervisors who monitor students who are at risk to provide needed supports. And I think this has been something that has been very useful and helpful this year to make sure that our kids are engaging. It also supports our art and music program. CSMA provides art and music instrument opportunities for students at all sites to engage in art and musical instruments. Currently, they're providing asynchronous lessons during distance learning. It also helps support the middle school counselors and CHAC. CHAC provides intern counselors to each elementary school for social, emotional, and mental health services. And we're also continuing this support by providing virtual support services. And this is a table that shows how the funds have been allocated and how they've been spent year to date. And this is also an individual file that was uploaded in the board packet.
Thank you, Dr. Westover. Are there questions from trustees? Trustee Chang?
Thank you for the presentation. Dr. Westover, are there some large buckets that have overlap with what the Education Foundation funds?
Yes. The Educational Foundation provides lots of funding for art and music, but there are portions that it does not cover, and the parcel tax picks up the remainder of it.
Does the overlap ever make it difficult for whether it be the foundation or when we're communicating the value of the parcel tax to the public on like when both programs pay for part of it? And I understand sometimes that's necessary, but does that make it more difficult to show people who's responsible for something?
Yeah, we've talked to the foundation a bit about this and how can we best help with communication, because we're all supporting these programs and we want to make sure they continue. What's tricky is because the programs are so large that we talked about, well, maybe foundation could support just this program and we can say it fully supports it, but they really want to be able to support a variety of different programs. For example, they wanted to know if it was possible for them to completely pay for all after-school sports at the middle schools, but it's quite expensive to do that. And for a parent that's giving to the foundation, if my child isn't in after-school sports, I want to make sure that I'm giving to something where maybe they're going to get music or other enrichment activities. So I think we've had lots of discussions about how can we best communicate this, or is there a way we can have foundation support some items as opposed to others? And I think at the end of the day, it really just comes down to that we're all supporting the kids for art and music.
Trustee Berman?
I noticed that one of the line items was after-school programs. I'm wondering if you can just clarify what that is. It's not a large amount, but is that going to the pods that are at school sites right now?
A good question. So after-school programs or enrichment, we're still providing it. So the school sites, depending on the school, have either decided to offer like online chess. The pods are funded separately.
Are there any further questions from trustees? Okay, we will now move on to public comment. If you are a member of the public and you would like to comment on this item, you can raise your hand in Zoom by clicking on participants at the bottom. It will pop out a sidebar. You can click on the 3 dots and it will give you the option to raise your hand. If you are on a phone, you can press *9. Do we have any written public comment on this item?
None at all.
Okay. And it looks like we do not have any raised hands. Are there comments from trustees? Trustee Chang.
to kind of follow up on the communication, I wonder if there is, we're a district that commits a lot to communication. And I think that this is one area where if we don't already find ways where you can really clearly communicate what is the PTA paying for, what is MVF, and what is the parcel tax. And it's amazing that we have a community that's so generous on all those fronts. But I can imagine that it can be sometimes confusing if somebody wonders, oh, is this after school program paid for by the PTA, or is this program paid for? And maybe, and I understand we can't just allocate a budget to each separate organization, but maybe there's some kind of joint communication effort or on every flyer that talks about the parcel tax also talks about MVF and also talks about the PTA, or every PTA flyer, some coordination where we ask them to talk about. So when the PTA is trying to educate and raise dollars, if they can also take that moment to educate about the parcel tax and the foundation, so that people understand all these different pies. But thank you to the taxpayers for this. We're so lucky to have this parcel tax.
Are there other comments from trustees? All right, I want to thank Dr. Westover for her presentation. I'd like to thank the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee. They serve a vital function in making sure that these funds are handled appropriately and ensuring transparency for the community. And I would also like to thank the taxpayers for making this money available for our students and these opportunities for our children. We will now move on.
A question, President Connolly?
Yes, Trustee Chang.
Could we just take a moment to publicly thank the members of the committee? I know their name in the packet. Actually, I don't think their name is in this particular packet.
I don't think their name is in the packet. Do we?
I don't know if it's right on Dr. Westover's desk or something we can just acknowledge, because it's so many hours they put in.
They do put in a lot of time.
Give me a second, I'll pull it up.
And the process to select new committee members, have those people, because I know that the application has passed, right, for people to join the parcel tax committee, or?
So to join the parcel tax committee, I took applications in and the board approved the applications. But if we have people that need to step off the PTOC, we'll bring more, we'll advertise and bring applications back to the board. Okay. I'm organized. So organized, it's in multiple different folders that I have to dive into.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
and we can
On the
just squeeze that in
website-
later.
On our website, it says Braid Pizzalia, he served for a while, Cleve Frank, who has also served for some years, Dr. Jonathan Petty, and Sarah Kopit Olson.
And we have, and I guess back to Chris's question, we've put an advertisement out and we'll be bringing applications to the board to approve.
Great. All right, we will now move on to item 10, which is board updates. Are there any board updates beyond what you will email in or may have already emailed in? No, all right.
I should probably just say that I did go to the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee. I did not email it in, but I did attend as a board observer. So thank you to all those members.
Thank you, Trustee Blakely, for your time doing that.
Can I make one quick plug? Sorry to interrupt. I was on our website earlier today, and I just want to put a plug in for the parent education speaker. I signed up for it today. So the author is Phyllis Fagel, and she's the author of Middle School Matters, the 10 Key Skills Kids Need to Thrive in Middle School and Beyond, and How Parents Can Help. So just want to make a plug for that. You can join that meeting. It's going to be on, or that presentation on January 14th, and I found that link right on our Mountain View Wisman School District website.
Thank you, Trustee Blakely. All right, item 11, items for future agendas. Trustee Chang.
This maybe kind of piggyback something we're already going to do. We have a meeting after this to talk about the board retreat, which I believe is scheduled for that January 28th. And then the question about a future item is regarding the reopening. Dr. Rudolph mentioned that we have January 21st as a meeting to kind of present. I know there's a lot of people in the community eager to hear what's going on and want to participate in that. And I just put out there to my colleagues that that maybe since we have a retreat that week afterwards on the 28th, that maybe we just kind of plan preemptively that we may need more than one board meeting to kind of properly air and get public input. So if we hear about the reopening on the 21st, that it's not necessarily a retreat item, but maybe that day of the 28th, we'll have to see how packed the retreat is, but this reopening has so much in it. I fear we're going to run really crunched on the 21st and not have enough time on that one day. And then we are butting against some deadlines. The Governor Newsom has a deadline for his program that's February 1st for the proposed state plans for their funding for reopening. So I'm just looking nervous at the 21st. So thank you.
I'm wondering if you could speak to that reopening presentation on the 21st, Dr. Rudolph.
Yep. So I think first we will be spending between both board meetings, the 21st and the 4th, a serious amount of time talking with, we have 3 focus groups, a reopening task force. All the principals have to go out. I have to meet with DAC. I have to meet with the PTA presidents. There's just no way that we would have all of those individuals provide any substantive feedback in such a short amount of time. And even if, and we're still working on the deck, but there will, even if the deadline is February 1st and they haven't finished all of the items, it doesn't preclude us from applying for it because the guidelines is you have to open in February. And we still have to provide our teachers and our classified staff with a 14-day window. And so even then, if you look at the 21st, we will be butting up. So if I would say, if this is, before when we got to this point, we scripted out all of the days and we looked at and arranged all of the schedules. And so trying to move it up faster will only inhibit the board from actually hearing from parents in a substantive kind of way, as well as all of the representative groups, because there are some fundamental changes that will take place. And if you just look at the community check-in is the day after, so it's on the 22nd. I would suspect that between the 22nd and the 4th, parents will have a chance to ask questions, process, and really get some understanding, as opposed to if you were to move it and have the conversation again on the 28th and expect for parents to have processed and made some decisions. I think what you'll see is a lot of basically, here's what I'm thinking today, and this is what I'm thinking tomorrow.
Thank you, Dr. Rudolph. Are there any other items for future agendas or any other comments? Trustee Chang.
A question then, do we anticipate that January 21st, do we see other big items potentially coming up on that, or will that be able to be kind of our main focus of our bandwidth and attention?
My understanding is the LCAP will also be that day.
That's correct. And I mean, we can start the meeting early, but I'm just going to be honest about it. It's a 90-minute presentation. We start the meeting early. We just need to be mindful of how long we spend time on other items. Not that the conversation wasn't great, but I think, what we've had in the past is that sometimes we find these other topics before something big, and we spend a lot more time on those and then end up pushing the meeting back to 11 or 12 or 1 o'clock. And we just need to be mindful of, we'll have it at the front of the agenda so that it's not too late after closed session or anything else, but we just have to keep with all the information that has to be presented. It is going to require a lot of time, and it's just going to require us to really be on our P's and Q's. And just for the public's sake, remember the last time we talked about reopening, we decoupled reopening with student data. And so this time around, part of the question that we'll be talking about is what has been the impact of being in a virtual setting and how does that prepare to the data? And so both of those presentations, which are pretty lengthy, are going to be combined together, which is as well as with, you know, sort of a better understanding of what Governor Newsom has and all these other items. So it's just a meaty presentation. So right now, those are the only two big things. We have to get the LCAP survey out in February in order for us to meet the deadline. And so we just need to be mindful. Those are the big items. Stay on point as I drag out this conversation.
Trustee Blakely.
I just had a question. At some point, we're going to be looking at the iReady data from December. Do we have any sense when that would be scheduled?
That is actually a part of this presentation.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank you.
It won't be as in-depth as what you would typically see, but if there are a considerable number of slides that are actually in that presentation, which will allow us to examine again, it's the total impact, right? So what has been the impact of all of this decision on our kids, and us trying to get the best understanding possible. So you will see some growth data across the board.
Thank you.
Trustee Berman had a question, and then we'll go to Trustee Wheeler.
Sure. So my thinking for just a future agenda, and we can figure out what the timing of it is just mental health and social emotional learning. And maybe this will come up during our retreat as well. But just, you know, thinking about the presentation that we just heard and how mental health is a really big issue when they're seeing it, just a really big impact with their kids being at home. As we talk about bringing our kids back and thinking about school year for next year, and also planning for our strategic plan for the districts, I'm wondering if at some point we can just get sort of a sense of where our district is with regards to like mental health services and how we support our teachers with social emotional learning, and just think about what else we need to do to just bolster those programs as a district as we prepare to bring kids back.
Dr. Rudolph, you look like you have something to say.
I was just going to say, I'm sure that's a presentation that Ms. Jimbo would be willing to do later on. I know she's meeting with everybody right now to sort of get an understanding of where we are. And as part of it, she will be doing an assessment. So I think she just put a thumbs up. So I think if we, in a couple of months, we could have that done once she has a full understanding of the lay of the land.
That's something that I would also be interested in.
Yes, me too.
And then it looks like we have at least 4 trustees. Trustee Wheeler.
Yeah. So speaking of Governor Newsom, in our February agenda, is Dr. Westover going to have an agenda item where she describes the January budget?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, there we go. And then Trustee Chang, last comment, and well, hopefully last comment. Oh no, okay, you're good. All right, we will move on to item 12. And this is one of our last items tonight. It's only scheduled for about 10 minutes long, but it's an opportunity for the board had requested a chance to report out about, I believe it's about CSBA and AEC and the learnings that you had there. It was requested in our December meeting. And so if trustees would like to share something from their attendance at the California School Board Association's annual education conference, now is a great time.
Can I say I didn't even notice this on here because it wasn't under review and discussion or review and action. So I am very interested in this agenda item, but I'm totally unprepared other than I can just, tell you 30 seconds of something. So I'll ask if I can make my presentation, share what I learned or recommend at a different meeting.
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to share at this meeting? Okay, so maybe it was unclear. We can move it to a later date.
So maybe February, Board President Conley?
I think we'll have to look at it if we're having a budget presentation and our second meeting on reopening. I think we might have to look at the schedule. Yes,
Yeah.
Trustee Blakely?
I'm just wondering if this could be tacked on to the end of the retreat, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
That's a great idea. Let's discuss that when we talk about the board retreat agenda in our special meeting coming up in a few minutes. All right, we will move on to item 13, future board meeting dates. We have board meetings on January 21st, where we will be discussing reopening and the LCAP. I encourage all trustees to really dig into that agenda packet when it comes out and submit as many questions as you can ahead of time, because it is going to be a big bear of a meeting. February 4th, where we will again review reopening, stakeholder feedback, and discuss the budget. March 4th and March 18th. And that, oh yes, Trustee Ching.
And this year, I believe you said last time, the retreat is actually being filmed for the public, which means maybe the public has interest in seeing it, or?
It will be on January 28th. And I believe that it will be streamed, Dr. Rudolph?
It will not. We stopped streaming the meetings because it allows the board to be honest and have some candid conversations that they normally don't have. So we haven't streamed a retreat in years, actually.
And are we still permitted to know? Oh, sorry, Dr. Rudolph, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So what we can do is we probably should meet up with Terilyn Finders, and she's going to have a lawyer that's also going to be present, and talk with her about how you want to handle the meeting. I know you have a phone call with her Monday. Is that correct, Devin?
Yes, I have and that's part of why we have this special session coming up right after this.
It may be also worth asking if we are required to stream under the governor's public meeting requirements for that.
I think we might have to because of the Brown Act. I mean, it's always been open to the public, but we haven't streamed it. But because we can't have it be open to the public without it streaming, I don't know. I mean, we should consult with Terilyn Finders and her, the lawyers, but I'd be surprised if the lawyers say that unless we're talking about one of the Brown Act types of items, real property negotiations, litigation, I think we probably have to.
Yeah.
That's actually why I recommended, sorry.
Well, there might be closed session items that get included in that agenda.
Yep. And that's also why I recommended that we just ask Terilyn on what to do next.
Okay. All right. With that, we will adjourn this regularly scheduled meeting of the Mountain View Women's School Board at 9:13 p.m. And then we are going to open our special meeting, but I thought maybe we could do a bio break for 5 minutes. So I will see everybody back at 9:18, and we will have our special meeting regarding the agenda for the future board retreat. All right, we have all of our trustees back. Make sure our staff is back. Okay, excellent. All right. At 9:18, I would like to call to order a special meeting of the Mountain View Wisdom School Board. Let me pull up our agenda. We will start with a roll call.
Glenn Wheeler.
Laura Blakely.
Laura Berman.
Chris Jane.
Devin Conley. Thank you. Let the record reflect that all 5 trustees are present. And then we need an approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Again, let the record reflect that on a motion made by Trustee Blakely and seconded by Trustee Wheeler, the board unanimously approved tonight's agenda. And we will move on to our final, or our only item, which is topics of discussion for our upcoming board retreat on January 28th. This is a time, as was mentioned in our previous meeting, to discuss things that we want to include in that retreat. And this coming Monday, the 11th, I have a meeting with Carolyn Finders, who's going to be our facilitator. She's from the firm Fagan, Friedman, and Phil Frost, and many of us have worked with her before. So, Trustee Chang.
Question about process. I in the past boards, and Ellen may have some input on this as well. There have been brainstorming sessions where we all kind of listed items, and in the past, we actually once I remember we even put stickies next to them to kind of generate a sense of like this is an item that had more than 2 people. Or so, President Connolly, do you have a process you recommend on as we share items? How do we process which have support to?
Well, so we have not done this since I have been on the board. And we have instead had the agenda rest in the hands of the board president. I am happy to take all of your input tonight. And then working with Carolyn, we'll kind of come to a finalized agenda. So it's not necessarily something where we vote on which items get included in the retreat, but hopefully we can go through a discussion about some of the things that could be included. And then when I meet with Carolyn, she can give me an idea as well of some of the things that we definitely need to cover so that we have an agenda that accomplishes what it needs to accomplish.
Maybe starting with what do we need to accomplish? Like maybe knowing our goal can help us.
Trustee Blakely.
Well, I would really like to focus on things that will help us cohere as a board and function effectively as a high performing board. And so accordingly, what among the things I would hope we would talk about would be the role of the board, vis-a-vis staff, vis-a-vis the public, but the role of the board and the role of the individual board members on that board. And that goes to norms. I really, really hope that we can spend a fair amount of time discussing norms and hopefully, coming to agreement collaboratively on what those norms should be. And ideally this would help us do team building because I look forward to serving with all of you. And I'd like us to be the best, most highly functioning team. And we have different viewpoints. We're not always going to agree on everything, but so that we feel safe, so that we feel heard, and that we, ultimately reach good decisions collaboratively. So I would hope that we could work on those kinds of issues. That would be certainly one of the things that I hope that we spend time on.
Thank you. Trustee Wheeler.
Yeah, and I haven't talked with Laura about this, so it's interesting that we're both on similar pages on this. I don't know what Superintendent Rudolph talked with candidates about, But one thing I would ask all the new board members to do is to review the board bylaws that are actual written down, structured things that boards all over the state agree to. Our board has agreed to a set of board bylaws. They're on our website. And in particular, the two, I mean, there's a lot of them, but in particular, the two that coincide with what Laura was talking about are Board Bylaw 9005, Governance Standards, and Board Bylaw 9272, Code of Conduct. So, and I'll share, so Chris mentioned, things that we have done in the past. It used to be that every year when we swore in new board members, we would read these bylaws, or these bylaws would be in the agenda, and we'd have what most of the time was again, a pro forma agenda item to approve, these two bylaws that saying, I agree to abide by these bylaws. And, all of us here know the past history of our board, where at some point in time, we weren't able to do that anymore. And I would like to have us get back to just an understanding and agreement of what these structured bylaws are. And, I would hope that our facilitator could help, lead a discussion of, understanding of this and the meaningfulness of them, and, just have a discussion, not just read it and rubber stamp it. But, these are meaningful ways that boards can respectfully work together.
Thank you, Trustee Winner. Trustee Chang.
Just want to share that I think both the, I totally support what Trustee Wheeler is talking about, us going through our bylaws and affirming that. And I think that what Trustee Blakely was saying about norms, I think both of them should exist at the retreat. Like, because the norms can maybe go a little beyond the bylaws and is kind of more cultural, kind of just norming what we consider norms between the five of us. Mm-hmm. So I welcome seeing both.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Trustee Berman.
Yes, I agree with all those points. I think the norms are really important. I heard Trustee Blakely speak about just highly effective boards and what those look like. And I think that conversation is just really intriguing to me. I think that I am interested in the type of conversations that highly effective boards have, and maybe what some of those protocols are. So I'm interested in learning more about that, and having those sort of be the models for us. I also know that Dr. Rudolph was preparing an orientation for new trustees, and he mentioned that it's pretty lengthy, maybe like a full day. And I'm wondering if there's some things that could overlap with some of the work that we want to do at the retreat, with some of the items that are on his orientation for new trustees. I know that there are a lot of meetings coming and a lot of big conversations, and having never served on the school board before, I know that I would really just appreciate learning as much as I can, and really honoring the work that Dr. Rudolph, you've put into preparing that. So I'm wondering if there's an opportunity during this time to maybe tease some of those things out and do them together.
We will explore that. I think, yeah. Something that we have done for the last couple of years at the retreat, as well as we have talked about goals for the year. And I don't know, Dr. Rudolph, I don't know where we are on our strategic plan phase 1 initiatives, if that is something that would fall in the retreat?
It is. We're probably about a month away from it actually being ready to come. The individual teams are working on it as we speak.
Trustee Wheeler.
Yeah, and I also, I'll share that Devin and I had a phone call, and I asked her, well, how long is this retreat going to be, And, it's going to be at night. It's going to be a couple hours. And I said, well, because it used to be that this retreat would be a day long. So my very highest interest for this retreat is to have it be a team building retreat. And I don't see this also being our strategic planning retreat. So I see those being two separate things, and maybe, listening to Allende, that, he's not going to be ready, for, really sensible discussion about this for another month, set another special meeting. One of the things we used to always talk about is, we only have one meeting in February. We could have a second meeting in February that is just, single topic meeting that doesn't require a lot of work by staff. So if it would be the strategic planning meeting, hear these reports and then discuss, our intentions going forward for the year, something like that. But, more like a study session kind of thing. I could see doing that.
And I will say part of the reason that our retreat is on a weekday this year is because it had to do with the availability of the facilitator. Because usually we've done them on the weekends, but it might be that if we do a study session or a special meeting on the strategic plan, Dr. Rudolph, that is something that we could possibly do on a weekend. Do you have an opinion about that, Dr. Rudolph? Oh, go ahead, Trustee Blakely.
No, let's wait for Dr. Rudolph.
Go ahead, Trustee Blakely.
I was going to go on a different tangent, so please.
All right, Trustee Conley, could you repeat the question then?
Yes.
I had stepped away for 1 second. So
I know. I'm sorry. I know it's been a long evening. So the suggestion of having a separate, this board retreat possibly being focused on more kind of norms, bylaws, processes, and a separate meeting when the strategic plan phase 1 initiative work is ready to discuss and review, possibly in February. That could be either a study session or a special meeting, could even possibly be on the weekend, where we could work on those initiative goals and have that conversation more in depth.
Yep, that was actually the question I thought you asked, so I just wanted to make sure. All right, so it is definitely possible. We plan on bringing back updates about the strategic plan as we go. So those would have been scheduled anyway. And we would have tried to keep them we're trying our best to keep all the media topics, from piling up on one particular day, but sometimes it's unaffordable. So it is possible that you could decouple the items and go from there.
Okay. Trustee Blakely.
So the tangent I was going to go down is on the team building piece. We're in COVID world. Normally, I feel really that it's really helpful to get together socially afterwards, have a meal. Usually we've either come to my house, we've gone to a restaurant, we've done something like that. And I don't think on January 28th at 10 in the evening, we're still going to be on lockdown. It's going to be cold. That's really possible. But if at some other point later in the year, things open up a little more, I would really welcome the opportunity to have people over, or maybe we go to a restaurant downtown or something outdoors once we're able to do that, if people feel comfortable doing it. But in the meantime, we're kind of stuck with Zoom. And, I would love to know, I know Devin and Ellen, we've served together for a while, and, I've gotten to know Laura a bit and Chris a bit. but just in terms of the team building piece, even like, how do you guys like to receive information, you know, or how do you process stuff? I mean, I've been to retreats where they've done Myers-Briggs, some where they've done Enneagram, different kinds of personality things. It doesn't have to be that, but I would just love to get a little better sense of, you know, how you like to work, how you like to receive information, that kind of thing. And so if there's, I assume Ms. Finders has led a lot of these before, and you may have some ideas as well, but, you know, a little more fun too, you know?
Yeah. Trustee Wheeler.
Can I tell you, one of the best, it's kind of a team building, kind of a get to know your team members kind of exercise. We did maybe 2 years ago with Pete Gorman, and he gave us this exercise where it was kind of a north, south, east, west kind of thing of, you know, how do you intake information and process information, and finding out, you know, who thinks about things similarly to you and who thinks about things very differently than you. So one of the things that was so entertaining to me at that meeting was how the way I input things is diametrically opposite from the way Devin inputs things. And we you know, we're both friends, you know, we both get along, but until I actually, you know, stood around, did that that kind of exercise, I didn't really understand that. And then also at that meeting, I saw that Jose Gutierrez and I process things similarly. So it helped me work better with him. Anyway, so I thought that was I don't know if that's the exact exercise that we could do, but, you know, something along those lines, I think would be valuable.
Yeah, that's the cardinal directions. My guess is that Tara Lynn has something that she is pretty experienced using, and so I bet she'll have some good suggestions for how we can do that.
There's many of those tools, but they can all be useful.
Yeah, they can be very useful. Trustee Chang?
I love everything that everyone's saying and look forward to doing that. I had one thing to suggest for our retreat would be discussing how we can share our learnings with each other. So in my past experience, you know, we all read books and we listen to podcasts and read articles, and sometimes it's been really hard and clumsy for us to find ways to share what we're learning. Like I would aspire for potentially even us having a book group, you know, where if somebody had a book they loved and we all read it, and then we had some way where we had a process where we could, you know, share our thoughts about them, you know, not as actionable items, but just, I think that as a learning institution, if we can on a retreat discuss how do we learn together, you know, whether it be kind of the CSBA we just went to or future things. You know, I appreciated, I read the article that Ellen just sent out earlier today, you know, but just going through the norms and processes of how do we collectively learn with each other.
Yeah, I think it's so hard because of the Brown Act. I always, you know, it steers me away from discussing things with other trustees. I think that's also another advantage of having Tara Lynn there, is that she can help us talk about a process that is allowable under the Brown Act, where we might be able to do something like that.
Like perhaps even agendizing, like just like we agendized the CSBA. Like if there was a book somebody loved, who somebody thought, and I don't even have one in mind, but if somebody had a book that, oh, we all should read this, and if we all decided to read it, that could be agendized.
Well, can I follow up on that real quick, Trustee Blakely, and then you? Okay, so something that I know Dr. Rudolph has done in the past with his staff, with his leadership staff, is that they have had book groups for different staff working on different things within their own personal growth. So it also might be interesting to look at reading some of those books because they are things that our staff are actually using and will help us understand their work.
I was just going to say, when you read a book or you read an article or whatever, you share that does not violate the Brown Act. That's the kind of stuff we can talk about, whether it has something to do with education or whether it's a fiction book or a science book. I mean, there's no bar on that. That where the bar is if you start talking about applying it to something that we are doing in this district that we might be voting on. But you can talk about books and share ideas without any concern.
It doesn't, so the things that I worry about are like someone sent, so some of the articles that get sent, haven't so far, but I worry about that this could happen. That an editorial or an opinion piece is sent, or even an article that has a very specific viewpoint, and it can be interpreted as the board members sharing their viewpoint on that topic. So when we look at reopening, for example, there are lots of different articles with different views on children in schools right now. And I get nervous anytime something like that gets shared with the group, because I do think it could inadvertently indicate someone's opinion. Trustee Wheeler.
Yeah, so I'm somebody who sends things out all the time and all of you get them. So Chris, I'm chair of the League of Women Voters Education Committee, and Devin and Laura Blakely are on that committee, and now Laura Berman. If you'd like to join the League of Women Voters and then join my committee, you're welcome to. I send things out all the time. And what I say to people is sometimes I send things out just because it's something that's important that's out there right now. It's not that I agree with it. It's that as educated people or people involved in education, it's useful for you to be aware of it. So, and that gets to Laura Blakely's point about, it isn't a Brown Act violation. I mean, I could send an opinion piece if I don't then tack on my own opinion. I might send an opinion piece of something that I disagree with, but it's getting a lot of press. So, and Chris, I really like your idea of, sharing books or things that we're interested in. I would even expand it to, getting to know each other. What are some other books? Laura, you were talking about fiction or science or something. One of the best books I read recently, and so this is the one I would recommend. I don't even remember the name of it, so I can't say it right now, but it was a book about sports. So I could see doing something at an agenda, at the end of an agenda, when it's not midnight, say a little show and tell. What is something that you'd like to share with the rest of the board members, and to humanize yourself.
Trustee Chang.
Oh, and not meaning to try to figure this out today, but maybe something at the retreat that, because like gradients of us, like what is our norms on sharing with each other? Would it be like light things through email or something maybe our agendized so that maybe that even members of the public, if the public members of the public knew we were reading something, they might have interest. A very small item for potential for a retreat would be discussion of our board's comfort on some inclusivity issues that I think were modeled by, forgive me, our district person who the wonderful person we've hired. Yes, excuse my apologies, but she presented things like doing like land acknowledgements, and I would have interest in us actually as a board modeling, doing our pronouns. I think that there's a lot of like small little leadership things, but I want to know what the comfort of my colleagues here on the board. So my suggestion is a short item to talk about, do we want to put a land acknowledgement in our board packets? Do we want to put our pronouns on our site for us 5, things like that.
I had been thinking about that. I have talked with Dr. Rudolph in the past about land acknowledgements. And so I attended the new president's training for CSBA at the annual conference, and it was a full day long training, and most of it boiled down to really nail down your bylaws, your norms, your understanding of conduct on social media with staff, communications in your retreat meeting. And so what was nice about that is that I have a lot of resources about some best practices in terms of making sure we cover all of those things. But I think it is a team building opportunity as much as we can over Zoom. While we may or may not be recorded, I think that if we are recorded, it really changes those team building activities a little bit. But then again, if the world needs to know that I'm an ENFP and that it impacts the way I operate as a board member, that's okay. Yeah. All right, is there anything else? If you think of something, I guess I can't say email me at this point, can I? Because we've had it's in a board agenda, but we will look at splitting the two meetings as well so that we come to goals at a different one. Yes, Trustee Blakely.
I think people could email Dr. Rudolph and he could share with you.
Okay, that sounds good. All right.
Can I say one last piece? I think if we can, and I'm just going to suggest it doesn't have to go in there, but I think thinking about an equity lens, and maybe our coach can help give us a suggestion for just the way maybe we look at when we think about norms and we think about board policies and we think about our board meetings and the way they're run, just really being mindful about equity and sort of who holds power, who doesn't, who shows up and who doesn't. Might be just a way to sort of frame things too, since that's such a big focus for us right now.
Dr. Rudolph, do you have anything to add? No.
No.
And we can also look at tacking on that, reporting out some learnings from the annual conference.
I absolutely agree with that. I didn't say anything during the meeting, but yes, I think that would be, okay. And so also Board President Conley, when I saw that tonight on this agenda, it was 10 minutes long. So I think that's too short. So I think, either 3 to 5 minutes for each trustee times 5. So, and then I don't know if Dr. Rudolph has anything to add too. So definitely longer than 10 minutes.
Okay.
And a suggestion is if we wanted to like write up a little summary or just bullets or just that could be helpful so that we can read it. And that way you don't feel like you have to squeeze everything into your 3 minutes. Maybe it's just everything's there, written format, just one line item I really want to highlight or one quote. So just a way to really condense it, but knowing that I can always go back to whatever you wrote and get a little bit more. I think that could be helpful.
Laura just assigned us homework for the retreat.
Sorry.
Trustee Blakely.
Well, so just, kind of on the same vein, but in terms of the board packages, like when we'd asked earlier, I guess I asked about iReady data and Dr. Rudolph said it was going to be melded in sort of some of the high level pieces of it in the reopening plan presentation. We may want to talk a little bit about board packages too, because there are things, sometimes we go over in nauseating detail with stuff that probably could be submitted in the board package for us to review, but the slides are kind of a higher level. And then if people had more questions about the data, really digging deep, and some people will, then they would have an opportunity to either ask about it in the questions or when we have our one-on-ones with Dr. Rudolph or that sort of thing. Because some of the stuff, these meetings can go on really, really long. And if we do like book learnings and this and that at the end of our meetings, I'm just sitting there thinking it's going to be midnight every night. And also just like we talked, Chris was asking earlier about the dollar amount of one of the contracts. We might want to go over, and I think that it is in the bylaws or something. There's 2 different levels for what can go on consent and what needs to be approved later, depending on whether it's construction or something else. And, we may even want to talk in terms of norms of that, to me, I don't view you know, $125,000 is that huge of an amount. I just kind of wanted to understand it this time, but I was fine with the answers in the questions that we submitted. You know, if we spend time on every single $125,000 item, you know, we will never get anything else done. So it might be helpful to have a conversation about some of those kinds of things. There may be some that are more critical that we do want to, you know, do a little deeper dive and have a fuller discussion about. But I think in terms of exercising our oversight, you know, and getting the information we need, some of that can be done by the board questions and written responses.
Okay. All right, this is all extremely helpful input. I really appreciate everyone's suggestions, and I think we chose Terilyn as a facilitator because many of us have worked with her in the past, and she's pretty amazing. So I also, you know, want to take in what her suggestions might be as well. And she knows that the former board a little bit. She doesn't know our new board members, but I think that she's going to be a great partner in this process. All right.
So can I make a request that, so I am always interested in the backgrounds of people. So if you would ask her to send us a little bio of her ahead of time. And I know she'll want to, you know, informally introduce herself, but there, you know, to Laura Blakely's point, there are things that we don't need to talk about in a board meeting. So, you know, I'd like to, you know, think about, you know, what is important to discuss live and what is okay to put in print.
Okay. All right. Any other further comments?
Did we ask the public? I don't know if there are any public comments. Did we already do that, or?
We did not. If you are a member of the public who would like to comment on this item, you may raise your hand in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. I think we have a lot of staff on here still. All right. Since there does not appear to be public comment, at this time, I will adjourn this special meeting of the Mountain View Wisdom School Board at 9:51 p.m.
I know.